Great. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining. You are here as part of the course in Understanding Sleep in Your Baby's Experience with Eliza Parker. Today's is the free class, Sleep as a State. It's an introduction to understanding sleep and your baby's experience. The course will be running for subsequent Mondays, the 19th and the 26th of September and October 3rd, 2022. And we have classes on the emotional key, stress release, processing birth, and Eliza will go into all those. I want to introduce Eliza. She is the founder of Conscious Baby, consciousbaby.com, if you want to go over there. That has sleep advice courses on why babies fight sleep and others. She has a Conscious Baby YouTube channel, which has some videos with tips on it, and also an active Conscious Baby Facebook group. Eliza was a professional infant nanny for 10 years. She is a certified instructor in aware parenting, also a certified infant developmental movement educator. She's a body-mind centering practitioner and a trained Feldenkrais practitioner. So I want to give a warm welcome to Eliza. Thank you so much for joining today, and it's all yours.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Brett and Kate. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to talk about lots of things related to sleep. I want to mention first that also I'm a highly sensitive person. If any of you know what that is and resonate, it means that I catch a lot of details and sensory information. Where my work comes from is three main places, and I just want to say hi, Kate. Okay, my work comes from Aware Parenting, which is Dr. Eliza Salter. Body Mind Centering, which is where Infant Developmental Movement Education is from, and that's Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen. And also some of the work about processing birth story and how to play and how to do that from Wendy Ann McCarty, who Kate hosted in the past. So I'll be speaking from each of those bodies of work. So if you're here and you're a parent and you want to set up great sleeping habits, that's awesome. Welcome. If you're a professional, welcome. If you're a parent and your baby is not sleeping or your baby is crying, that's awesome too. You're not failing. So the first very important note here is that you're not failing if your baby is not sleeping well or if your baby is crying. Of course, you're exhausted and you want some sleep, but there's also a lot of pressure to get children to sleep well and to stop all the crying. And we're going to dive into some of that, but there's some gems. So this will give you an overview of sleep and some important foundational information. The course that follows will dive deep into each of those areas, but we're going to touch on three crucial aspects today. So, and I suggest that we go through the presentation and then do some Q&A on the other side. So jot down your questions and we can pause, and if there's a burning question, we absolutely can. But we'll do some Q&A at the end. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And can everyone hear me okay? Does anyone need captions? Are we good? Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, let me make sure I can, yes. Okay, we're good. So I'm going to talk about sleep as a state, not a skill. So, sure, there are skills around reducing stimulation, stress level, calming techniques, that kind of thing. But sleep is required for survival. We're born knowing how to sleep. Now, that doesn't mean your baby is necessarily sleeping wonderfully. We're going to get into that. I just need to press this button. Okay. But overall, sleep is a state. And this is a lot of this is new information for parents. So there's no judgment, there's no guilt if you come across something that's new information that's different from what you've been doing. I need to, I think, do we have everyone? Is everyone muted? Friendly reminder, I'm making noises on my end. Okay, here we go. Okay, sleep as a state. There are two ways to talk about state. One is consciousness. So there's three main states of awareness is one way you can look at this: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. To sleep is to be in a state of sleep. Sleep, a naturally occurring state of mind and body. But we also use the word state as a condition, like their particular state that someone or something is in at a specific time, the particular condition. So, like how's your mental state, that kind of thing. So take a moment to think about what influences your state of mind, your state of being. And y'all feel free to type in the comments or unmute just to pop out your answer. Actually, I'm not sure if I can see the chats.
We can read them out loud to you if people
Okay.
want to, but so repeat the question again.
What influences your state of mind or your state of being? And particularly if it's something on the more stressful end of things. Think about your life. Is it work stuff, relationship stuff, or is it more general, like when you have something on your mind you're thinking about, or you're in pain, physical pain?
Yeah. Other people's energy, rushing, tempo, pacing, having too much to do, work crises, how much sleep I'm getting. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yes.
Sleep for sure. Yeah, keep them coming, people.
Great.
Yeah.
Y'all keep coming. I'm gonna go ahead.
Someone dysregulated.
Yeah.
You want to talk? You want to keep teaching, Eliza? I can.
I'll keep going and I'll pause and check in again.
Okay.
For me, if I'm thinking, I'm a thinker. If I get stuck thinking about something overnight, it seems enormous. I don't know why, but it seems a ton bigger than in the daytime. And while you're thinking about this, think about what effects it has on you when something is affecting your state of mind. What effects does it have on you? Think about your breathing, tension, relaxation, shoulders, your focus. What kind of effect does it have on you? And you can type that in, and Kate, you can let me know anything else coming in.
So people say when they're hungry. Anyone else? Someone dysregulated. Things that affect your state.
And how does it affect your body and your mind, kind of specifically breathing, tension, shoulders? For me, it's shoulders.
Yeah, constriction, I get agitated. I can't get comfortable. I have to really work to get comfortable. Tightness in chest, I feel my shoulders and back very tense. Jaw tightness, cringing, belly tightens.
These are good ones.
Yeah,
And
people are good connected with all that.
awesome.
Yeah, harder to focus, heart racing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for piping in on that. Our brains are still at work while we sleep. So you may notice these things in the daytime, all these things you just thought about are listed, but they also affect our sleep and affect us while we sleep. Studies have shown that sleep is critical for learning. So our brain seems to consolidate memories while we sleep, help us connect bits of information while we sleep. Like if you ever have said, yeah, I got to sleep on it. Just yesterday, I said this. Someone asked me, did I want to participate in something? And I said, I'm going to have to sleep on that. So there's stuff happening while we sleep. So just like us, babies' state of being affects how deeply they can relax. So in order to help babies relax, we must address these experiences that are impacting them, and that can come from a variety of directions. But doing that allows us to really meet underlying needs. So not to just overlay something to fix a symptom, but to really go to the underlying needs. And then relaxation and sleep can arise more naturally. So our goal in all of this is for your baby to sleep based on their internal cues, they're sleepy, their internal motivation, versus depending on the external cues and the external habits. I want to say a word about what this work and this approach is about. It's focused on respect, a lot of relying on babies' innate wisdom and their innate abilities, and this is the magical part. Underlying needs and root causes, we're really taking a deep dive. Big picture, and very much so about connection and communication. So not about training or cry it out. We're going to talk about crying, but in a different way. So not so much a quick fix of symptoms, but the big picture. Okay, sleep logistics. Like timing, bedtime, routine, location, the do's and don'ts, those kind of things. A lot of people expect this when we talk about sleep, but for me, this actually has the least amount of attention, because when we address root causes that we're going to dive into, it takes care of a lot of these things take care of themselves, a lot of the logistics, or they're easier to look at once we do the deep dives. But I want to mention a couple. The legit need for closeness. So if you've ever come across, it's a very common perspective about putting baby down awake but drowsy. With this approach, we're not going to go black or white on that, but to recognize that babies have a legit need for closeness, especially around falling asleep time. We're going to dissect that some more in the course, but that's one area that often feels conflicting for parents and can get you into some confusion. So if you've had a gut feeling about that, that's not matching some of the common things you might have heard, that's why. Yeah, and the falling asleep on their own is also something that we have a different take in aware parenting about this. So that concept is still in there. It's just a little bit of a different take. It's still about falling asleep on their own, but recognizing their need for closeness. So if it's not about logistics, then what? The key is what's affecting your baby's state and ability to relax. So I was working one time with this family, Amber, and this was actually a toddler, but toddlers and babies, it's all related. It's all the same foundation. And we see this again and again, that sleep issues often go beyond just sleep. They were, as you can see, they were feeling helpless as their daughter woke up screaming, which would continue sometimes for 1 to 2 hours. And I have a red mark on my screen. I'm not sure what that's from.
Yeah, someone just decided to experiment with the draw.
Oh.
So whoever that is, you can erase it too.
Okay.
It's not about it. You didn't do anything.
Like, what did I do? This is my HSP, I'm gonna notice. Okay, so this family, they woke up screaming, would continue for a long time, and they were also struggling with daily transitions like getting into a car seat, getting dressed, sitting down for dinner. Is anybody resonating with this experience? What we did was a deep dive to help her process some early experiences, because that's often intertwined in sleep situations, sleep challenges. And we went into some tools to help so that they could support their child through those big emotions that they were seeing. And they came out on the other side. We found ourselves much more patient and less anxious and never feeling helpless. And this gives you a sense of the big picture we're working with. And the big picture is not only about the areas we're looking at, it's about the overall feelings of, sometimes it's the feeling helpless or the guilt. Very common to feel guilt around the crying or the sleep. And this is no guilt. Let's jump out to the bigger picture and look at everything as a whole, because your child is a person. So I find that there are 3 crucial aspects, the biggies that affect sleep. The emotional key is the stress release piece. The core key, which I named that because it's so core to, I feel like, all children's experience, processing birth and early experiences. And then the physical key, baby-led milestones and handling tips. Okay. Take a mini pause here before we dive into emotional key. Okay, the emotional key, stress release. We're going to talk about stress and crying, but don't stress. This freaks a lot of parents out, but there's a lot of gems in here, so hang with me. This information is from Aware Parenting. I want to talk first about why babies cry. Number one reason, everybody knows babies cry for basic needs, like they're hungry, they want to be held, that type of thing. The second reason is not as commonly known, so this part might be new. When your baby is crying beyond those basic needs, it's a natural, healthy mechanism for releasing stress. So you're not doing it wrong if your baby is still crying beyond needs. Your baby is communicating. What a wonderful thing to foster, and let's keep that open. Babies need a pressure release valve. They need to get it out. I often hear a perspective that it's because they don't know how to calm down, This is a shift in that perspective. Actually, they're trying to get it out so they can get to the other side to calm down. So that's the new piece. It's a shift. This perspective will turn a lot of things upside down in a good way. It's current daily stimulations is what they might need to process, or prior events. So it can be the current day-to-day stuff or the old stuff that they just haven't completely worked through yet. This is not a bad thing. Stress is an inevitable part of life, and stress itself doesn't have to be negative. It just is. It's how much happens, how we process it, and things around it that determine how it affects us. So it's an inevitable part of life. So this is a way to have tools for how to help your child, and that's a wonderful thing. We tend to see crying, I feel like, as a problem versus a solution. Anyone resonate there? It just can feel like crying is something we've got to figure out and solve. Well, it is something we need to attend to, but as a problem, does that resonate? So this family that I was working with their baby, they had tried bouncing and shushing and nursing to sleep, but they were still having some sleep challenges. So together, as I worked with them, we let their baby have a good cry in his parents' arms, and then the baby fell asleep. That's a common response. And the dad said, "Oh, it's like crying is actually a solution." And I was like, "I'm writing that down." I mean, I already know that and I teach this stuff, but when somebody makes this crystallized quote, I'm like, I love seeing how you guys see this in action. So, and this got me thinking, yeah, we do tend to see crying as a problem, but really it's a need and can be a solution. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a sec. Important for you to know is about emotional habits. This piece, Aware Parenting calls it control patterns. It's whatever the habit is, your go-to, your favorite go-to when your baby cries. They're not bad, but they're not meeting the true need. So that's like the pacifier, nursing for comfort, shushing, bouncing, walking, rocking. And again, these things inherently are not bad in themselves. It's that if the baby is crying in that moment, the true need is that reason number 2 to release that stress and get it out. So when those things happen at that timing, it tends to mean that it's not meeting the underlying need. So they become associations instead, and that's where they get sticky. And all of this is related to self-soothing, which some of you might be wondering about now. We're going to delve more into that in the course, and maybe we can go there in the Q&A, but just tuck that in the back of your brain if you're curious. There's some intertwining here of self-soothing and how that interacts or not with getting their feelings out. So these emotion habits can get set up by choice. Sometimes it's what you as a parent decide to do. Sometimes it's a felt instinct. The interesting thing about instincts are that sometimes they're learned habits. And often how we were raised will influence how we respond to babies when they're crying. So sometimes it can feel like an instinct, but it turns out it ends up being becoming a habit, habitual. Sometimes it's an assumption, and sometimes it's out of necessity. For example, and also, let me tie these two things into this one example. Habits I feel like begin in wisdom. Whether it's something set up by choice or something, here's my example. Baby was in the NICU, was not getting full feedings as a newborn, was on a timed schedule, or there was an undiagnosed tongue tie. So comfort nursing ends up being a habit. That began in wisdom. And then sometimes it gets connected to big feelings. And then it also becomes a feelings association. So there's all kinds of links in this information. So, and again, take this in as information, and there's more coming to delve into all the details. Don't worry about all the details, but if something is piquing your interest, stay curious is my invitation, because there's a lot of perspective shifting with all of this and a lot to learn. Why crying is connected to sleep. So the vulnerable timings, like pre-sleep or when they're sick, feelings tend to bubble up more easily. It's just harder for all of us to hold it together when we're tired. Definitely so for your babies and toddlers. And then when that happens, we tend to implement the go-to. That's when the favorite go-to or whatever has developed. It gets implemented to stop the crying and get baby to sleep. And then associations develop. So this is what looks like sleep associations. But are they? Really, they're feelings associations. So I will put out there, we do see sometimes when babies have gotten all their feelings out and there's no need for the pressure release valve before they sleep, they just fall asleep. And I know that some of you might be like, what? That's not even a thing in my house. But it speaks to this information about what really is the association. Is it really a sleep association? If sleep is a state, or is it a feelings? And we find that it's typically a feelings association. It's indirectly a sleep association because of this, because it's a vulnerable timing, which is often when feelings come up. So what you're seeing as fighting sleep is typically either feelings trying to come out, your baby trying to get those feelings out, or your child struggling to keep them in, or sometimes it's the grown-ups. Before we learn this information, before parents learn this information, sometimes you can just feel like you're exhausted trying to get either the crying to stop or the baby to sleep, if anyone's resonating there. So the fighting, what feels like fighting, is usually there's some feelings involved in there somewhere. So this is called crying in arms. And now we're getting a little bit into what you can actually do now. Crying in arms means allowing your child to cry in your loving, listening presence in your arms. We're going to delve deep into this in the course, but a great starting place is just start opening up to the idea of letting feelings out. For some parents, this is more comfortable initially than others, and it's often related to how we were raised. So if you're comfortable with this and you're like, cool, let's do it, just run with it. If it's new, or the thought of holding your child and listening to him or her cry makes you anxious, notice that there's nothing forced here. There's no should or shouldn't. And it's your journey too. It's baby's journey of getting the feelings out, but it's also your journey in terms of how you're doing and where you are. So a big part of this is just opening up to the idea. This is a big perspective shift for a lot of people. So that's a good starting place. Second, explore it. Go ahead and explore holding space and listening. Don't worry yet about the details. You're going to have questions, but there's some important starting places, because a lot of this is our own internal work also, to be able to hold space and listen. So be curious and start in a curious, open, welcoming listening space. And thirdly, very important, notice your response. So some people are very comfortable. For some people, it's very awkward. And then for some people, it's quite a challenge. You might feel like you have the urge to make the crying stop. It's all okay. This is objective. Just notice. There's no judgment. Just notice your response, because that speaks to something and it's important. Typical responses after a cry release are that babies often will fall asleep. This a little bit depends on the age, but they will often fall asleep without the usual habits of those emotion habits, the pacifier or the nursing to sleep. Nursing is amazing. The question is, does your child need to get something out at that moment? So, or the bouncing, shushing, typical responses, they'll fall asleep without that. And this can be a very touching moment for parents to see, for you guys to see. Or they might stay awake, but very serene and connected. Okay, we're going to go into the core key. This is a really juicy part. I love this part so much. I cannot even tell you how much I love this part. I mean, I love all of the parts, but this one's really amazing. Okay. This is so important. And the information in this part comes from across all areas: aware parenting, infant developmental movement education, and Wendy and McKenna's information, and that kind of that realm. This is, well, let me back up. Think for a moment about, how do you make sense of your experiences and work through stress? Do you think about things a lot? Do you go for a run? Do you talk it out with somebody? How do you work through your experiences? Because of time, I'm going to keep on going, but feel free to chat. I just might not stop so much. Babies need to process their experiences just like we do. And they remember their birth and early experiences. There are different types of memory. So we're going to delve into that in the course, but they do remember. We can help them process through storytelling, telling their story, play, movement, photographs, lots of different things. This part, this aspect, this whole area seems to me to be the least recognized, yet I find it the most pivotal part of understanding your child's experience, and the most common factor behind sleep struggles. Now, not 100% of the time behind sleep struggles, but most common, aside from them just needing to let the feelings out. But even so, there's often this piece underneath. Babies and parents are wired, especially mamas, well, I don't want to say especially anybody. Babies and parents are wired for expectations at birth around connection, and that often gets disrupted. It can get disrupted in a hospital birth, but it can also get disrupted in any kind of birth anywhere. So this is not about blame or guilt. It's not about what decisions anyone could have made or did make or didn't make. It's not about that. It's literally, how was it from your baby's perspective? Babies don't hold grudges. They do need to process. I find when I'm working with families that there's these two main pieces. Babies need to understand some information about why something happened because they've already felt it, they've already experienced it. They just might not understand it. And sometimes it's that rift between our expectations and what actually happened. And they need to process feelings often about what happened. And that is where that foundation of understanding the need to cry and let off steam is really important and will support this process. How to recognize if your baby needs this. This is a little bit of a trick question because I find that all babies and toddlers tend to either need this or tend to do it in some way at some point at some time. You may or may not notice it. I just find that it happens across the board. We can see it through movement that's in pushing and arching. So, and not every one of these details alone indicates they're processing birth. So we look at the whole picture, but pushing and arching is often related to them still processing their birth, that motion. Or maybe it's a consistent touching of their head or pulling their ear, which also can indicate other physical things as well. Sometimes we see movements they did in the womb, that they're showing us their story on the other side, on this side. Sorry, I meant on the other side of the womb, on the outside of the womb. Didn't mean to make that sound. We also see it through big feelings, like crying beyond needs is a biggie here. And again, not all crying beyond needs is this, but it's the whole picture. Play. So like if your child loves to put things around their neck, or they like to put things down tunnels, or they like to hide and pop out, or might be some other things more specific to their story. There's lots of ways we can see this through play and through behaviors or patterns that seem stuck or seem intense, like they're scared to go through tunnels, or they have a very demanding list of requirements before bed, or intensive separation anxiety, or just a particular behavior that you can't figure out, that doesn't resolve. We often find a connection. Anyone resonating? Okay. Laura's experience. I was working with this family, and heads up, I'm going to mention something about a womb history experience. So I want to give you a heads up, but I'm sharing this because I see it so often in sleep challenges. This family, this baby was 14 months. She described her baby as confident, well-adjusted, and happy. They were having several wakings overnight still, even though they had already resolved a lot. They were already doing crying in arms. They had already seen a lot resolved, but they were still getting this one thing, these overnight wakings. So we did the deep dive thing. We went through her birth story and nothing was triggering. So one thing I'm looking for when we do a birth story is what's activating and what's not, what seems to trigger the child and what doesn't. Nothing did. We went conception through afterbirth. So we investigated womb history, and mom had had a miscarriage before this child. once they started talking about that, the child became activated, feelings started bubbling up. She got very engaged in the story. Like the whole time, she was just sitting super chill, playing with whatever. And we started talking about this, and she got much more active, seemed a little tense, her feelings bubbling up. So, what we do in that, when that happens, is explain what happened and how everyone felt. And there's more to this too, which we'll dive into in the course, but that is an example of something that was in her experience. Sleep is like a separation because it's a different state, and it can feel like a separation for babies. So it can feel like they're going away or someone's going away when they go to sleep. So it can trigger these memories of womb history or of not understanding where that baby is, that baby who they sensed, not understanding where they are on the side or not able to find them. Or trigger memories, it can trigger memories of parents' understandable fears during pregnancy. So we help baby process that, understand what happened, assure them that they're here and they're safe now. And for this family, those wakings started resolving. That's the piece she needed. So what you can do now is start observing your child's play symbolically. So do they like to put something around their neck? Be curious about that. Do they like to drop stuff down small holes? Do they like to get stuck in little small spaces? Just be curious about those things. Put on your symbolic lens, and that might be very eye-opening for you. It's also magical and fun to watch, to witness. And also you can go ahead and start talking to your child about their birth. One way I like to start this is, remember when da 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 da. So this also is another thing that's much more comfortable for some than for others. So start simple, start with what's the most burning on your mind, or with what's piquing your curiosity the most. And we're going to delve into this more in the course, but this will give you some starting lens. Okay, I want to make sure we have time for some Q&A. The physical key, baby-led milestones and handling tips. This part is very fun because it's more tangible, and that's very satisfying for lots of people. This information is from Infant Developmental Movement Education. And a lot of people don't know that babies will find sitting, standing, and walking on their own. This might be new information. It often is. We adults learn on purpose by practicing a new skill. Babies in their first year with motor development happen to learn through reflexes that are popping off, kicking off, so to speak, and interaction with gravity. So what I mean by baby-led is really letting them discover milestones and positions completely on their own without propping or teaching them. Now, propping and teaching milestones is very common. Propping devices are very common, or holding them up by hand. So you may have done this, or you may be doing this. There's no judgment here again. This is new information for a lot of people. So the key to know here is that babies will find sitting, standing, and walking typical development. They'll find it on their own. There are times to come in and support. Sometimes it's body tension, or sometimes there's a movement challenge. But those overarching positions, there's so many benefits to letting them find find it themselves. And to clarify, this means upright. Inclined is different. If they're leaning back on you or leaning in an inclined chair, that's different. The difference this makes, you really know that baby's body and brain are ready once you see them do the milestone, the sitting, standing, or walking. It really communicates to them that it's okay to be where they are. We don't need them to come up higher. Parent-led is a different approach. It tends to be done with loving intentions, but it does jump them ahead a little bit of what they can do themselves. So if you can imagine having this new perspective and how it's all related to relaxation. If you've ever had an injury or a procedure that took a while to heal and you developed compensation patterns while that was healing, it's an adaptation. So when their bodies put in a situation they're not ready for, compensation patterns can develop. It's also related to sensory integration, which means how their brain is processing sensory information. It develops along with motor milestones. Movement quality, meaning melting into gravity versus holding up away from gravity. Baby-led motor development can affect all of these things. So if they can't do the milestone on their own yet, it can activate their nervous system. So it can make be the difference between a heightened alert versus calm and grounded. And when I say nervous system, it's like how we see that is it can come through in body tension, hard to focus, hard to sleep, hard to relax. So this physical piece is a part of the picture. We're going to delve more into all of this in the course, and we're going to go into some handling tips as well to support the calming and the physical regulation. But what you can do now, if you've already propped your baby upright, sitting or standing or walking, just begin by reducing the amount of time spent propped upright. And be curious. This is new information often. Be curious. What might your child do? If you haven't propped yet or your baby is young, keep going. Avoid as you go on from here, avoid propping if you can, or aim for 90%. Like if grandma comes over and she's all like, oh, hi, my baby, it's cool. Don't worry about that. If baby needs to get some air out, eat food, it's okay. But have this in your mindset. In any case, either way, think about coming down to baby's level. We tend to think about bringing baby up high to our level, which is not a bad thing. That's also beautiful. But this is another shift of perspective to bringing ourselves down to baby's level. And by doing so, we can help them stay more calm and grounded. And that's going to help the overall picture of relaxing and sleep. Okay, let's wrap up and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A. So we've talked about sleep as a state versus a skill, crying in arms as a way that babies heal and a way they release feelings and pent-up stress, processing birth experiences, and we talked about baby-led milestones. The impact on sleep of those big feelings, pent-up feelings and stress can make it hard to let go and relax. I definitely have felt that. unresolved birth or early experiences. It's that expectations compared with experiences, when there's a riff or when it feels like something just wasn't right, but we don't know what it was, we tend to continually subconsciously look for resolution until we find resolution or until we find some way to satisfy it. And that can keep us up at night. That's a biggie. And then milestones. Babies develop body habits a lot by how we hold and move them. And that can unintentionally trigger into high alert or can help them stay calm and grounded. So we have an opportunity in each of these areas to really draw out their innate wisdom, their innate abilities. There's gems in each of these. So I hope that if you've resonated with some of these challenges, that you also have a sense of hope, and there's a gem in each one. And this is not only about sleep, but supporting a huge process of bonding and trust and your relationships together throughout life. So that's big, big picture. And lastly, remember you're not failing. Okay, Kate, let me take off my screen share. And Kate, shall we do a little bit of Q&A?
Yeah, I would love to invite everyone. There's a couple of people who've had questions. I have a dog here who's also, we're having thunder, so he's a little upset. So I will turn off my microphone but I will also just encourage people to ask questions. And I wanted to thank you very much, Eliza. I'm delighted to have you be a part of our online school. Those of you who don't know me and our online school, it's dedicated to understanding the baby's experience and really helping embody that, helping people come to understand this world. And Eliza is an expert in this area. So we're very happy to have you do this little class, this short course for us coming up. So there are lots of questions that are popping up in the chat. Eliza, can you see them or do you want me to read them out?
Yeah, I can see them now. Okay. Okay, y'all, I don't know where the questions start, so I'm gonna just look at where I am now. Slides, yes. Slides are, I can drop the link in here. I can also leave them with you, Kate.
Yeah, I will upload them. This will go into a pre-lecture series that we have in the online school, and I can make sure you all get them. She's going to put them there.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Does propping include being in a high chair, even if they're able to sit up on their own? The question there is, well, there's two questions. High chair is fine for short amounts of time if baby needs to eat. If they're able to sit up on their own, that's a really great clarification. In baby-led, what I'm calling baby-led, we mean, are they able to get into and out of sitting, standing, and walking on their own, or especially get into it on their own? So that's different from sometimes if you sit a baby and they can stay there by themselves, but they haven't gotten there themselves. That clarifies a little bit. And I see Sarah has her hand raised too.
Yeah, go ahead and call on her. So
okay, Sarah. Oh, how do I?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. When you were discussing about crying in arms, I was thinking about just the rising of cortisol with the child, because thinking about stress and all that and how that impacts development versus like crying it out, because I understand the process, like crying, and then collapse. And then eventually the baby, from what I understand, just stops asking for help. So I was curious, like crying in arms, like how that negotiation with the rising cortisol and how this also relates to like attachment and secure attachment, if, you know.
Okay, great question and clarification. Thank you for asking. This is the cortisol is related to, sorry, I'm distracted by y'all. I get distracted. Okay. Cortisol during crying. Studies have definitely shown that there are stress chemicals, that stress is happening during cry it out. As far as cry releasing, it's different because it's in arms. This cortisol and the stress that are happening when there's so-called cry it out or crying, essentially when they're separated from or left alone, is stress building, different from when they're being held in arms and they're held in a loving listening environment and paid attention to. That way of crying is stress relieving. And there are studies about the chemical content of tears being different. So that type of crying, we see it in as the cries come out, parents will often, like as they start getting used to this process, will often start seeing, oh my gosh, it's like they're communicating. Oh my gosh, it's like they're telling me a story, because the baby will, once everyone gets set up and the baby learns, oh, they're listening, they're tuning into me, I'm letting all this stuff out. They'll start weaving between babbling, communicating, intonation, and it really can feel like they're telling a story, and that's also very touching. And then we also see it in how their body is afterwards, whereas before a cry release, they tend to be something along the lines of, or any one of these things, tense, worked up, busy, can't stop crying. And then after a cry, they really relax. It's also very touching to see. Attachment, aware parenting is attachment based. Eliza Salter has some excellent resources about that too, that will go into more detail about attachment. The link there, but it is attachment based. Thank you, Sarah.
You want to take Nicole's class?
Yeah, Nicole. Go ahead, Nicole. Nicole, are you?
Uh-oh, is she frozen there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay.
My baby in the background, she just woke up.
What's your question, Nicole?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, you're gonna hear my baby crying in the background. She just woke up.
Crying is a beautiful thing.
I'm curious about when you're holding them crying, if they're doing things like arching and trying to get out of your arms. There we go. Are you back? Sorry, second. If they're like arching and squirming and trying to get out of your arms, do you just allow them to move that way? If they're like moving out of your arms, do you allow them to move out of your arms? Like, how best to support them?
Nicole, how old is your baby?
9 months tomorrow.
Okay. There's a few things here in your question. Pushing and being active often comes hand in hand with a cry release. It's related to stress response in our brain. Same as like when toddlers tantrum, our bodies get very active. So that's one piece of this, but that's also where we start looking at what's the arching. Some arching is very birth related, some is more digestive related. So, and if that's the case, then it will often take us into birth story, which is another way we get there related to sleep. And with toddlers, this is an even bigger question that we can talk about. I will delve into also, because it's a bit more of a reading the gauging what's happening in terms of holding them in arms versus not. There's more there because it's not about forcing. But and if it feels like forcing and they're trying to get out, that's where we need to look at the whole picture. And we want to separate out the force holding from them actually trying to express, or they're still running the birth movement through their bodies, which actually is like it looks like they're trying to get out of your arms because they're connecting. So those are different things. Okay, Kate, should we keep going on questions or?
Well, I just want to acknowledge we have hit the time that we've said. If those of you who need to go, we definitely want to thank you for being here, and we will try to send out the recording as soon as we can with the handout. And we're not able to download the handout, Eliza, so okay. You can just get that to me in a PDF form. I can circulate that. And I'm willing to stay for a few more minutes and take questions. If you are, Eliza, it's up to you. You tell me how many more questions you would like to address, because there are quite a few in the chat, and I just
I am not able to stay, but I'm happy to answer questions. You can contact me either through my website or eliza@consciousbaby.com, or my Facebook group is also a great place for questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to more questions, but do feel free to reach out.
And also feel free to come to our class that's being hosted here at the online school with Eliza. Those are 90-minute classes. And I did approach her because I just really wanted this information in the online school and for people to really get the baby story, understanding how to be. It's a very vital place in our development, and it's one of the most common areas that people bring their babies to me. My baby's crying, not sleeping, and not feeding. And what Eliza brings is really a very compassionate but effective way of being with families, the whole family. So what is the Facebook page, Eliza?
Conscious Baby. If you Google Conscious Baby, Eliza Parker, sorry, I should have this answer off the top of my head. I just go to it.
Well, I can include all the links. You had about 240 people register for this online course, this online free lecture. So I'll make sure everyone gets the recording. And please reach out to Eliza, ask questions. I often will refer families to her who ask me about sleep practices. I think it's really very compassionate and wise. So, and with that, I really hear you need to go, Eliza.
Thank you so much, Kate, and thanks everyone for coming. It's really a pleasure to be in this space that Kate holds.
Yeah, thank you. Feel free to turn on your microphone and say goodbye as you head out the door, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Eliza, and thank you.